CJ Knows Show.
We're here with Hedder Pierre-Joseph, a fascinating individual. I will say a political icon in the Haitian community, chairwoman of the Haitian community in the Democratic Party. What's the title technically, Hedder? What are you called in the Democratic Party?
I'm chairwoman or
Chairwoman?
chairwoman of the state
Of the caucus.
Yeah, chairwoman. Yes.
All right, awesome. Tell us
caucus.
what you do. I want to know a little bit more about you and where you're from. And I know you're Haitian American, but you've come from the Bahamas and God knows what else. And what do you do? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I have to pay homage to my humble beginnings, right? Humble beginnings does not mean poor, but a lot of immigrants come from a rich culture. So I was born
Right.
to Haitian parents, my mom and dad in the Bahamas. And they fled. The United States was selling guns to Duvalier. And so you had this mass load, just like immigrants, and I call them refugees, who fled Haiti, went to the Bahamas, and from the Bahamas, I made my way here. My mother died in exile, so unfortunately, that's some of the stories. I mean, there are countless of bodies that never made it on those boats, right? Remember when they used to call us boat people back in the
Yes.
day?
Yes.
And I think that's sort of ingrained in me. So I find myself in spaces now. Thank you for those kind remarks, CJ. I am so humble.
How old
But
were you when you came
I still
stateside?
can visualize 4 years old.
Okay, so you've been
4
raised
years old.
primarily
So
here if you're from elementary school upward, I would say, right?
yes, yes, yes. And for me, you disassociate, right? You grow up in this country, you see these
Right.
boat people, you see them calling refugees. You disassociate that it's not me, I'm American. I'm going,
Right.
into inner city schools, Broward County, I'm and you disassociate yourself from what you see the media projecting or presenting, but then life hits you, right? So before there were dreamers. So um I have the path of immigrants and not being of Cubans. I think the Cubans were the only ones granted immediate
Oh,
legal
they were given
status.
everything, right?
The
Billions of
other
dollars,
groups,
aid, everything, right? And Haitians were not. I mean, there's always that debate.
correct.
Why do the Haitians be treated the way they are? The Cubans aren't. That was always a question in South Florida.
Yeah, I don't know. And so for me, it's so when we talk about this political arena, so with everything that I do, I remember my humble beginnings. I am so grateful for the opportunity to be where I am. It plays a life on you. So you graduate, you're in this country undocumented. So before there were dreamers, I was dreaming. I didn't know I was a dreamer. And so I'm passionate about working and seeing the kids, and it's heartbreaking, it's heart wrenching. So I'm in this space to make sure that I use the little voice that I have. I don't have affluent parents. I don't come from a prestigious background. I am one of those boat kids from the 80s, the late 70s, early 80s. I spent 16 years in this country undocumented. And so everything that I do comes from that perspective, whether I'm teaching, whether I'm advocating. I love to work with young people. And I do believe a lot of immigrants, when they're faced with these challenges, they do come to America for a better life, a safer and better life.
But that's the
They give
positive
their
of this
all into
country,
their
right? I mean,
children.
isn't it that we have a lot of problems, clearly, but at the end of the day, it's been a beacon, for immigrants, poverty, originally with the Europeans more so than the violence, religious freedoms, and now violence from the Caribbean or what we've seen with Haiti and countries around Latin America, opportunity. And that's what really built this foundation of this country. No different if you're Italian. And they went through hell too. They were really stepped on, and the Irish as well, and the Chinese and the Japanese were interned in World War II. I mean, we have a history of immigration, but it wasn't too nice. And now we have political powers attacking immigrants like there's some evil force that are here to do bad. I mean, doesn't that get your blood boiling? I mean, looking at you and how you contribute and all your friends that help our great state of Florida and our country, I mean, it's got to be disheartening.
It No, because I understand race is a social construct, right? I understand that.
Okay,
And
tell us about it.
in the words of the late Dr. Maya, yeah, in the so for me, I mean, I've lived it, right? You've gone there. I'm a lot older, I'm a lot wiser. So for me, in the words of the late Dr. Maya Angelou, and yet we rise. And so I look forward to the opportunity, and yet we rise. In spite of all the adversity, and yet we rise, and yet we strive to make America better, and yet we fight. We don't fight. We know that people
Right.
attempt to dehumanize people. Um, you get a little tough skin. Doesn't bother me, because I understand that there's always a generation after to come because of neocolonialism, right? So you understand what happens in these islands, you understand what happened in these less developed countries. So since I have a bigger picture, we
Right.
fight every generation.
To me, it's we have to own our tribe in a way, and what I mean by that is, if you're Mexicano and you're Mexican background, you need to see the leadership from the Mexican community come up. I mean, there may be gringos, there may be part of the United States, but to move a community. And when I see real success, I see when, for me anyway, is when I see, in this case, Haitian Americans holding office positions of office and moving forward. Haitian Americans getting involved in the political process, voting, participating. And when I see that, then I really feel that it's changing, you know. But democracy is something that has to be worked on. And my biggest fear, I know Ian Kershaw, the historian, said the road to Auschwitz was built by hate but paved with indifference. I mean, I see so many people when we see a presidential candidate talking about eating dogs and cats and slamming down immigrants, and we just, it was a big deal. That's what frightens me. Do you think you're seeing that change in the Haitian community in your work, that they are getting empowered, they're getting involved? We're seeing not only great entrepreneurs building their businesses, but starting to be more involved in the political community.
Correct. I think I do see that we're getting more involved. I mean, this is just the onset, right? I think it was different from Texas. It was different from the other treatments. You remember, and I have to say this, you remember, they said the Haitian bought AIDS in the 80s. So, I mean, we've gone through this, but I think the only different thing right now is just this person to say that was a former president of
That's a
the
frightening thing, you
biggest,
know, Trump.
the
Yeah.
superpower, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's dangerous. And what it's done, it's kind of brought us together. It's created alliances, right? Even with the other immigrant communities, or the communities, like, this man, he has to be ridiculous, right? And it's so divisive. So I think that's the part of it. But absolutely,
Why?
we don't know what history is going to
Why
do. But this
does
one little
why
comment, right?
why does half of the country support this ideology and this ludicrous? I mean, you know, he's a convicted felon. He's a draft dodger from Vietnam, but a lot of military people support him. He's a rapist. He's been convicted of these things civilly, and he's on camera saying these horrific things. He put out a full page in the New York newspapers attacking the 5 young men that were falsely accused. Why is it, in your opinion, that so many Americans, and don't even get me to the blue-eyed Latinos and Asians and blacks that support him, why do they do this? Why are people, in your opinion, supporting this, in my opinion, lunacy? I mean, for the sake of democracy. I mean, why? A conservative, I understand. Support a conservative, but why the guy that tried to take down our nation, our democracy? Why is this happening?
You see you see the racial undertones, right? The overtones now, right? They're racist and they're hateful. This is coming from a place of hate, and they're blinded by their hate. And someone once told me, going through something, one of my Jewish doctors, he once told me, because he said when his mother, he'd always wonder why people would do so much wickedness or so much evil things. And he says to me, he's like, listen, my mother always told me, you can never figure out the mindset of the wicked. Those people clearly don't operate in truth. You can stick it right in front of their faces, they're not going to believe it. But I think part of the problem is, and there's a scripture in the Bible says, when the wicked rule, the people mourn, and when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. Even when you talk about the Holocaust, bad has always existed and they will always exist. I think the problem lies within us. Those of us who are good, we're too quiet. I mean, we're too quiet. I mean, we're too silent. We just say, okay, we're extremely passive. And history has taught us, history will push you, incidents in history will push your back against the wall and force you to realize, listen, these people, they're coming after everyone. I mean, he started with the Muslims and he said, we call this, remember the SHIT countries, he shut
Yes,
down
yes.
everything. So I mean, but then in the midst of doing all that, I remember my Muslim brothers and sisters praying. If you're anybody of faith, I've never seen, they were on the ground praying in the airports, praying in the streets, and God answered. So I think the problem lies with us, that CJ, us, those of us who know better, we need to start speaking up
Well,
and
you're
voting
doing it.
right, right? Voting right.
Yeah, getting involved in politics. You're doing it. You're doing it on every which way. I understand in Orange County, you're involved with the English language kids that are trying to learn English. You're doing things to empower young people, to empower people in general. And I think if you and more people like you get involved, we're going in the right direction as a country. If we don't, then we're going to go slide back, right? But even if we slide back, what do we have to do? Keep working, right? We got that freedom train is still on the tracks running. We got to keep fighting for the changes, don't you think?
Yeah, and I think I don't know, history or it, and I'm going to use God. It's those of us who have been oppressed are the ones who tend to fight. So I am civically engaged because, and I say that I thank the NAACP for depositing into me, the late Beverly Neal, Adora, in Miami. I think that group, my generation, African American, I never had to use white only water hoses. I never had to drink from white
Right.
only water fountains. I never had to go into or I couldn't use white only water fountains. I didn't have to look black water fountains or
Right.
colored. Used to call us colored back then.
Right.
Colored
The
water fountains.
restrooms.
I never had to go to colored restrooms. I never had to go to colored schools. But and who I call it Mama Bracy, the Dr. Levon Bracy, who integrated the Jacksonville schools. And so for me, I was extremely blessed to grow up around people. That generation never forgot. They fight. My generation integrated, right? I
Right.
came over in the late 70s, so came out on the crust. And most immigrants, you know, we don't pay a lot of respect or homage to the struggles of the civil rights. Because had it not been for the civil rights, there wouldn't be an immigrant that would have been safe after.
Well, that's why we need to be awoke,
the
right?
60s.
We need to study the history. We're talking to Hedder Pierre-Joseph, iconic, hard leader, somebody that I think we're going to see in the future will make a difference. I'm sure he'll be elected to something sooner or later. I'm looking forward to see when you're United States Senator or Congresswoman or whatever you decide to do. And either way, you're working with young people and encouraging, and you're promoting inclusiveness, and you're the kind of person that we love here. And this is why we should open our doors to people like Hedder Pierre-Joseph and so many other millions like you. And thank you. I know this country has succeeded because of our immigrant policy and the people from around the world that bring their talents, their hard work, their vision, and their intelligence to change America and change the world. I do appreciate you being on with us, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much, CJ Knows. Thank you
Pleasure.
so much.
The CJ Knows Show.